Dr. Jill Biden has a brand new job where she will hopefully be able to put that medical degree or whatever she has a doctorate in to good use. Also, the new study that came out that the New York Post is reporting on confirms the fact that defund the police was not a good idea. It's shocking, but you're going to want to hear about it. Also, the Trump administration apparently is going to crack down on these woke Soros-funded DAs, the most recent iteration coming out of Minnesota. All that and more coming up on this episode of Turning Point tonight. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Together, we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point tonight. Now, before we get to any of those stories and to our fantastic panel, we have to talk about the big bronze statue that popped up in New York City's Times Square. If you're not hip to this story, that's effectively what it is. A very large 12-foot statue. You can see the picture. I'm not going to describe it for you at risk of, I don't know, getting thrown off the internet by the woke mobsters. But it is what it is. It seems to be a rotund, possibly African-American woman, unless it is a white woman culturally appropriating the African-American woman hairstyle. All that to be said, a lot of people are asking, why is it here? What is it doing? What purpose does it serve? And rather than just kind of poking fun at the ridiculous of it all, I thought I'd actually bring you some fun facts about it. The Times Square official website has a full-on bio of what this is doing here, how long it's going to stay, and its purpose, which I find hilarious. First things first, it went up at the end of the month, at the end of last month. We'll be here until June. It is a 12-foot bronze statue. It is called Grounded in the Stars for some reason. And in part, it was taxpayer funded. Now, the website says that, well, there's some private funding, there's some public funding, but just know that New York City and New York State has tens of millions of dollars, quote unquote, invested into art projects. Now, here's where I think it gets fascinating. The reason for this statue is to confront perceived notions of identity and representation. Now, of course, obviously, we can find a real individual that best confronts the notions of identity and representation, but instead of doing that, they made up a fictional person. The fictionalized character that is depicted in this statue is constructed from images, observations, and open calls spanning between Los Angeles and London. In other words, I'm sure at great expense, somebody traveled halfway around the world to be able to come up with a pretty average-looking person. Lastly, and I thought this was the most hilarious part on the Times Square website, it said this. It made a comparison to this new statue, saying, "The ease of her stance is a subtle nod to Michelangelo's David." Yes, the statue in New York City of a rotund black woman is comparable to Michelangelo's masterpiece work of David. Here to comment on that and actually more serious things eventually down the road, comedians, commentator, Instagram influencer Bobby Sausalito, and Priya Patel, conservative commentator. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Bobby, I want to start with you here. Just overall thoughts. Well, first of all, actually, I want to ask you specifically, should any taxpayer dollars be going towards art, right? Because art can be pretty much anything the libs want to funnel to their cronies and call it art. But and on top of that, just what do you think of it overall?
Well, I definitely think that it's okay for taxpayer dollars to go to art. I think that cultural significance is definitely important. So to dismiss it as not being necessary, I don't think is fair or accurate. But this particular thing is quite hilarious. And it's like, she's not even really dressed like a traditional woman is. So I just really don't understand the purpose or the cultural significance of it. It's almost like laughably stupid. It's like they could have her like for example, if you were to go out to pick up something from the bodega, you might dress like this, but why couldn't they just be dressed normal, like they were going out to an event or going out to meet other people or be seen? It kind of looks like she's going to the airport to catch a flight, and she has this kind of weird stance where she just almost looks angry. So I don't get it. I hate it. I think it's really dumb. And there's a lot of other things that you could have done that would have been a lot better than that. But I'm not surprised. I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was scrolling through X trying to, look for stories of the day. This popped up and I'm like, yeah, I mean, Of course, there would be a 12-foot bronze statue of a rotund black woman in New York City. Why would there not be? Priya, considering the fact that it seems like the people that get this sort of funding tend to come up with projects based on buzzwords like identity and representation, I guess, what else might be in the works on the lefty side of the aisle here? And will they continue to pound that sort of pavement and continue putting out, nonsense like this?
My gosh. I mean, especially in liberal New York, anything is possible, to be honest with you. I mean, the next best thing could be, a trans cat. Who knows? But
Mm.
just tapping into any of the sort of niche identities that the left loves to push on the entirety of the population nowadays. It it's really just beyond ridiculous to me. I don't understand why we couldn't have, like you said, found an individual that might represent these ideals that you want to portray to the public through these art pieces. But this is just a very, I mean, saying an average looking person is might potentially generous, to be honest with you. This visibly overweight individual that may or may not be a black woman. I don't understand exactly what that's supposed to represent in our culture. I don't understand what positive attributes it shows and portrays, but hey.
Yeah, and too, I think I'm with Bobby on terms of art is good, culture is good, and maybe we can find some people and promote them to prominence by putting statues of them up. In other words, or we can just put up random fictionalized characters. Speaking of some woke stuff going on, the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, has now said she's going to start looking into the woke activist DAs who are not charging people for crimes that they've committed. This one specifically is a district attorney in Minnesota who effectively openly created a two-tier legal system based on race. Bobby, I'm going to read you something from her negotiation policy for cases involving adult defendants. It says racial identity should be part of the overall analysis, and prosecutors, quote, should be identifying and addressing racial disparities at decision points as appropriate. At what point is she aware of this being in direct opposition to the Constitution and creating an equal playing field for everybody, or is it like delusion? Like, is it done intentionally, or does she not know that this is a massive problem and part of the very thing the United States was created to avoid?
Yeah, well, they have a habit of theoretically having the best and most empathetic intentions. And it's like,
Mm.
as we all know the saying, it's like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I understand what they're trying to do. And I don't necessarily believe that every leftist inherently is just evil and bad and just wants the worst things. But when you actually see it played out in real time and what it actually does, it actually ends up hurting those exact people even more. And the idea that you would treat people differently as a result of their race to try to equalize some type of playing field is only going to end up making it worse anyhow. And of course it is against any normal legal process. So it seems like it would be illegal or at the very least unconstitutional or whatever for them to not do it. But it's going to have other negative ramifications as time as time goes on. So it's obviously a bad thing. And it's going to actually punish that group of people even more than it's going to theoretically advance them. But the only thing that they ever care about with every single thing they do is scoring the woke points, scoring the empathy points, where it's like a person on the left will say, I think that we should give money to the homeless, or we should give free apartments to the homeless because we don't want them to be homeless. Isn't that empathetic? We're caring about these people. But really what it does is just enable them to do more bad things and create worse times for the people who are not homeless that live in that area. You're not actually helping them. You're not teaching them how to fish. You're giving them a fish. And as a result, as soon as they consume that fish, they have to go and figure out a way to find another one. And if they can't, they'll have to steal it from somebody else. So you're not teaching them anything. You're not helping them. You're only setting them back. So it's obviously generally bad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no disagreements here. Priya, this DA, Mary Moriarty, is the same one that didn't press charges on the Minnesota employee, the state employee that went around and vandalized a bunch of Teslas. One of my biggest problems, and maybe this will rub some people the wrong way, is that at some point, at least some people are trying to hide it. This seems so open and brazen. And to me, that's like an insult to my intelligence. It's almost like I'm just going to do this in front of your face and you're not going to care at all about it. And I'm thinking, dude, we're smarter than that. We can see this and it's in broad daylight. I don't know. Is this an insult to the American people's intelligence, or is it just they just don't think that this is inherently bad?
I think it absolutely is an insult to the American people's intelligence to think that these prosecutors can just get away with this selective policing and prosecution is just ridiculous. I mean, it's completely unconstitutional, and to override the individual rights that everybody has to equal protection under the law is just ridiculous. And this selective prosecution under the guise of race, again, the left loves to push this idea of reverse racism. I'm like, no, it's just racism. That's exactly what it is at the end of the day. And like Bobby was mentioning, this notion of the bleeding heart liberal is so true. A lot of people that I know that are liberal are just the kindest and most empathetic people that I could possibly imagine. But they don't realize that if you follow these ideas out to their logical conclusions, that they just end up hurting the group that you intend to help.
Yeah, it's the parent that just wants to be nice and gives their kid dessert every single day. All you can eat donuts. It sounds good then, but it's not so great when your kid has diabetes and is overweight and it's just a bad situation. Priya and Bobby will be right back after the break to discuss the shocking statistics in a new study reported in the New York Post about whether or not the defund the police movement actually worked. Also, Dr. Jill Biden has a new job. We'll discuss after the break. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.